When I was 12 years old, my dad gave me a book called Jurassic Park. Some of you didn't know that was a book. And then they turned it into a movie. But when I was 12, I read Jurassic Park, and shortly thereafter it became a movie. And what 12-year-old doesn't love dinosaurs? You know, it's exciting to read about dinosaurs. And the movie came out and it blew my mind. But for me, and again, I think my brain just works a little bit differently than most people's, not necessarily in a better way, just different. What really captivated my imagination was not the idea of dinosaurs coming back to life. That was really cool, but there was this kind of aside in the story where there was a character named Ian Malcolm, if you remember the story. And he was a chaostician. He was somebody who worked in chaos theory. And this sort of captured my imagination, this idea of chaos in our world. And if, at a very rudimentary level, chaos theory has to do with making predictable things that are unpredictable. It's looking at the unpredictability of life and saying, actually, are there ways that we can begin to use really complex mathematical formulas to make the unpredictable predictable? And so in chaos theory, one of the sort of the classic examples is what's called the butterfly effect. And it's the idea that a butterfly can flap its wings in Brazil, and it can create a chain reaction within weather patterns that will actually accumulate over time and end up with a tornado in Texas. And you might think, well, that sounds really abstract, but understand that not that long ago, there was this town that you'd never heard of in China. And there was this person who got sick, and I'm sure it seemed like nothing. And yet, look at what has happened over the next 2.5 years, and how that one seemingly insignificant moment that almost no one paid any attention to whatsoever, and yet it sets in motion a chain reaction that changes the course of human history. There's so much of the world now looks radically different than what we would have imagined even a couple of years ago. See, that's chaos. That's events of the past or in the present that disproportionately affect future events in ways that we could never have predicted, never have imagined. And what I find so beautiful about that and what resonates with me is that I think this is so true to how our lives work. You know, we try so hard to control and to make sense of our futures and what's happened in our past. And the reality is that there are so many really infinite variables that reveal that there's really very little control that we have. And yet we try, don't we? I mean, how many of you have tried to solve your life this week? How many of you tried to figure your life out? How many of you have looked back and thought, wait a minute, how did I get here? And you try to trace the steps. You try to figure out if only this had happened or this had happened, how did I end up here? See, I think as humans, we spend an inordinate amount of time trying to make sense of life, trying to solve our lives. And we try to predict outcomes, and we try to learn from the past, and we try to correct our direction, and we try to solve for solutions that we hope will happen, and we just keep trying. But so the reality is that life is chaos. There's an element of chaos and unpredictability to life that we never really escape. And we can never really do anything to correct. I mean, how many of you can think of a moment in your life where everything changed for you? Maybe it was something really beautiful. Maybe it was a wonderful moment that suddenly it opened up a future that you never could have imagined, but you suddenly realized, oh, I've always dreamed of this. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was something that happened and it changed the course of your life, and now you look back and go, if only that hadn't happened, my life would be so different. See, I imagine all of you in that instant you could think of one or two of those moments that changed the course of your life, but in reality there are an infinite number of those moments. It takes all of these momentary responses and conversations and a disagreement here and a look there and something you read here. And it's just all these moments that seem insignificant, and yet they can have a disproportionate effect on your future. They can change the course of your life. It's enough to give you a headache. Just this week, I had one night where I had a particularly stressful day at work, and I couldn't sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night. Has that ever happened to you? Yeah. And I couldn't sleep, and I began to replay the conversations in my head. And I began to replay the decisions that were made, decisions that I made on the fly, decisions, some of which I had planned, and then now I'm second-guessing. And I found myself replaying all of these, going, should I have said this differently? Should I have presented this in a different way? Should I have phrased this in a slightly different nuance, in a slightly different way? And should I have made a different decision, or should we have approached the decision-making process in a different way? And see, you're trying to solve all of that. And the reality is, I don't know. I don't know. Is it possible that in that day I set in motion a chain reaction that would end in catastrophe? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. See, it's enough to stress you out. Throughout this series, Just Breathe, we've been looking for and trying to figure out how do we reclaim rest and peace within our souls, the peace that God desires for us to have in the midst of a very chaotic world. You know, the reality is that so much of the chaos that's in the world is actually reflected in us. And what keeps me awake at night is actually less to do with the chaos that I see around me and a lot more to do with the sense of chaos that I feel within me. And I don't think I'm the only one. I think that all of us, in some ways, we are chaos carriers. We have chaos within ourselves, and then we take that chaos into our relationships and into our workplaces and into our families. And we create chaos because we have our own emotions and doubts and questions that then set in motion chain reactions that lead to more chaos. Some of you are chaos super spreaders, and you don't even realize it. You carry chaos wherever you go. And I think that often what God wants to do to quiet some of the chaos out there is to begin by quieting some of the chaos within us. And so this morning I want to look at Psalm 121 because Psalm 121, in a very subtle way, I think it speaks to some of this chaos that we feel. But it also paints a bigger and a very profound and beautiful picture of all that God can do and all that he is doing, even within the chaos of life. So I want to begin just by reading this psalm for us, because it's not a very long psalm, and I think you need to hear the whole thing to really understand the context. So he writes this, and it opens with a heading, a song of ascents. I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life, and the Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. Amen. Yeah. I have to tell you that sometimes I read Psalms that I then have to preach on, and I actually don't want to. In some ways, I wish I could just read that for you, and then we could all just go home. Some of you wish that too. But I think there's a lot here that we can learn from, a lot here that our souls need to hear. I want to start actually with the heading because it says a song of ascents. Understand that an ascent song, we find a whole series of these within the Psalms, probably were songs that were sung by worshipers on their way to Jerusalem. These were pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem, to the temple, to celebrate a religious festival or holiday in some way. And yet in the context here, it's actually a song that's being sung as they leave. This is actually a psalm in some ways that's anticipating the journey home. What will it be like when we leave the temple, when we leave the celebration, that spiritual high, and we find our way on the journey home? And so in verse 1, he says, imagine this with me, just fill in the gap here. As we leave Jerusalem, as we leave the temple, I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? So you can just imagine this pilgrim and this worshiper. He's been in the temple, and this is a giant party. You know, their religious festivals are not dull, okay? It's like a giant festival. There's ritual, yes, and there's these moments, but then there's so much more that's going on. It's a religious festival. It's like a Baptist potluck, only so much bigger and with a lot more wine, all right? And so he's on this religious and spiritual high, but now he finds himself on his way home, and he's thinking, how do I leave that to go home to this? You know, how do I leave the spiritual high? How do I leave the temple, the presence of God, and now I'm going to go home, and it's just the daily grind? And within the daily grind, guess what? There's all sorts of unexpected and not always pleasant surprises. You know, it's doctor's appointments, it's politics, it's finances, it's disagreements and discouragements and all the rest that make up life, and beauty and joy and all of it. But in the midst of it, there's a monotony, isn't there? There's a daily grind of life. And so he's saying, how do we leave the temple? How do we leave Jerusalem and we go home and we just have to endure life? Who's going to help me through that? Have you ever had that kind of a spiritual high in your life? Where you just, in that moment, you just felt so connected to God, so close to God. You couldn't even explain it. It just filled something in your soul. And in that moment, you just didn't want to let it go. It's how you leave every Sunday from Easton Bible Church. I know it is. You can laugh. It's okay. See, it's not always the case every week at church. I know that. It doesn't happen for me. I mean, I have to tell you that where I consistently experience that type of connection with God, I have to tell you that it's in the mountains. You know, it's in nature. When we lived in Texas, one of the great joys that we had was to leave Texas and to go to New Mexico, which is much nicer. And we go to the mountains, and in the winter we skied, and in the summer and the spring we'd hike. And you just see the grandeur and the beauty of God's creation. You get a glimpse of his creativity and the beauty of God, his character woven into the created order. I remember one time we were driving between Angel Fire and Red River, and it's this mountainous overpass, and as we were on our way, knowing that we were having to go back to Texas soon, I turned to Carrie and I said, how do we leave this? How do we leave this? I was kind of really beautifully ironic that to leave New Mexico, you literally drive downhill to Texas. It's like a descent. You're on your way down, folks. You know, it's 10,000 feet where we are in New Mexico, and it's like 300 feet in Dallas, and you find yourself leaving the beauty of the mountains to come back to a concrete paradise with ridiculous traffic. And it's like, how do you leave the mountains? How do you leave the presence of God to go back to life? How do you survive that? And this is the question that the psalmist is asking. How do I go from there to survive my life? And then he answers his own question, where does my help come from? To get me through the day, I'll tell you, my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. See, God is the maker of heaven and earth, all of creation, all of heaven and earth, everything, and which is everything, right? All of that falls under his domain. There's nothing outside of his jurisdiction. So if you want to look for help, he seems like a good place to start. I think the struggle with asking God for help is that we don't always understand what we're asking for. I think we ask for help, but what we really are looking for is solutions. And God says, I'm not here to give you solutions, I'm here to give you help. We have a chin-up bar in my bedroom that I sometimes hang, not as often as I should, so that I can actually do chin-ups in my closet doorway. But two of my kids can actually do chin-ups, and two of my kids can't, but they like to get put up on the bar. And so I put up the chin-up bar, and here comes my now 6-year-old and 5-year-old, and they come running in here, and Dad, hold us up. I want to do some chin-ups. And so they kind of get this now because we have kind of a game with it. But the first few times, I'd hang them up. You know, I'd lift them up, and they're hanging there, and I would just do this. And they're like, I want to do a chin-up. I'm like, go for it. I put you on the bar, chin-up. Well, that's not what they want. What they want is for me to lift them up. So I say, okay, here's the deal. You pull, and I'll lift. Okay? And I'm gonna give you some help, but you have to pull, which of course was frustrating for, at the time, she was probably 3 years old, 4 years old. She's going, no, you just lift me up. I shouldn't have to pull. I'm holding on. You lift me up. And by the way, I want to do 10. Which means, Dad, I want you to lift me up 10 times, because I can't even begin to do one. And see, I think sometimes in life we find ourselves hanging from what feels like a bar. And we're hanging there, we're like, God, lift me up. Put my chin over the bar 10 times. That's what I'm looking for. And God says, oh, no, you pull, and I'm going to help you struggle. See, that's what my help is for, is to help you in the struggle, because it's as you're struggling that you become strong. See, if I just lift you up, that doesn't help you. I'm here to keep you from falling off. I don't want you to fall and hurt yourself, but understand my help isn't to provide you a solution. My help is to provide you help. Is to help you in the struggle so that you can become stronger than you realize that you could become. You could have the strength to live the life that I've called you to live, because it's going to take strength. See, maybe you feel sometimes like you're hanging on and you're waiting for God to do everything for you. And he's saying, listen, I'm helping you. This is what I promised to do. My help is for you to struggle. But don't worry, I'm not going to let you fall. I won't let you fall. See, look at verse 3. He says, he will not let your foot slip. And he's not just saying, I'm not going to let you slip. What he's really saying is, I'm not going to let you fall and hurt yourself. See, to slip, this is the epitome of chaos, isn't it? I mean, this is your life. It's just tracking along, and then something trips you up, and suddenly you're putting back the pieces of your life. This is chaos in its essence, to slip and to fall and to hurt yourself. My son Gabriel, when he was about 18 months old, he was running, and he tripped, didn't see it coming. He tripped and broke his arm. See, that is chaos. You think you're running, you think you're walking, everything's fine, and then you slip, and everything's changed in an instant. And see, this is the danger of slipping. It's not just that you slip, it's that you fall and that you land. It's not like you slip and then you're suspended in midair. No, the whole picture is that you slip and you fall and you're hurt. One time we were in the mountains and we were hiking, our whole family, and there was a trail that we'd never been on before. And so we're walking. It seemed like a very easy trail. We're just walking along, kind of a dirt road. People could even drive on it, not real exciting. And then we got to the end because the summit where we were trying to get to was there. And it was basically felt like it was going straight up. And it was also really rocky. And it wasn't just rocky like, okay, big rocks that you could hold on to. It was like loose, almost gravel. But we said, hey, we've come this far. Yes, we have a 3-year-old. How hard can it be? We're going to do this. And so I think Eli was maybe 5 and Eleanor was 3. And so we got behind them and we began to like push them up this cliff face, it felt like. And understand that the rocks were so loose. You know, we committed and then we sort of regretted it because the rocks were so loose. There were some rocks that you could stand on, but then as soon as you thought you were okay, suddenly it would slip out from under you. And you think, okay, I've got it. I'm standing here. And then you take another step, and those loose rocks would slip out from under you and find yourself sliding back down. But we fought and we clawed and we made our way all the way to the top. And then we had to go back down. And now gravity is working really against you. And I remember looking down and thinking, oh my gosh, what have we done? Because I'm just imagining my 3-year-old, and there's no way she can walk down this. She will slip, and she will tumble. And she's not going to stop there or there or there. She's going to stop down there. See, that's the danger. You slip and you fall and you fall and you fall and you fall. And so Carrie and I, we sort of tag teamed on this, and we found a way to get our 2 younger kids down. I think Carrie basically used herself as a shield to just let Eli slide down behind her. But I took a slightly different tactic, and where I could, I would just carry Eleanor. That's always fun. But then there were other times where I would hold her hands, where I knew I couldn't safely carry her. What I would do is I would hold her hands, knowing that she would slip. But I would turn it into a slide. Because a slide is like a slip, only with direction, with purpose. And I would let her slip, but I would turn it into a slide, and I would land her right where I wanted her to go. I think sometimes we feel like we're in loose rocks on the side of a cliff. See, when I was holding Eleanor, it felt unpredictable. She had no real control. And sometimes we feel like we have no real control, and we forget that God is holding on to us, and God can take even the chaos of our lives, and he can turn what feels like a slip into a slide. He can place us right where he wants us to go. See, when the psalmist says, he won't let your foot slip, he's not saying that there's nothing that in your life that will ever be unpredictable again. Where would be the fun in that? Life is full of unpredictable things, and so many of them are beautiful surprises. And if you stop and think about it, the greatest things in your life, I almost guarantee, are the things that you never planned. They're not the things that you expected. But yes, there are times when it feels like we're on the face of a cliff, and if we fall, we're going to fall and fall and fall and fall, and the rocks are loose, and we don't know how to keep our footing. And we have to remember that in that moment, God is holding on to us, and he can turn our slip into a slide. And he can make sure that we land exactly where he wants us to be. And so he says in verse 3, he will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. It is beautiful. You can sleep because he's awake. When I was a kid, we lived in, my grandparents lived in northwest Arkansas. And to get there, you had to cross what was at the time ranked the 7th most dangerous highway in the country. It was mountainous, big hills going down and then back up and then down and around curves. And it was also a trucking route. And so these semis would drive over these incredibly treacherous roads. Even for a small car, it would be something you'd really have to be careful. And if they weren't used to driving, they would, one, allow their speed to get carried away. But 2, they didn't know how to use their brakes, and they would burn out their brakes, and then they would crash. It was the 7th most dangerous highway in the country. They've since built a bypass around it, so basically no one has to drive over it anymore. It was just too dangerous. But I remember driving to my grandparents and being in the back of the van, and we would drive sometimes at night, and I remember being pitch black outside, semis flying by us, and it's raining. But I'll tell you, I slept like a baby. Because I would sit there, and for a moment I think, this is crazy. This is really dangerous. And then I think, yeah, but my dad's driving. It's fine. See, we can sleep because God, he's awake. See, probably like me, I said the other night I couldn't sleep. Probably all of us. You know what I'm talking about. You have these moments where you're lying in bed and you're awake and you're playing everything out in your head and you're trying to solve your life. See, you can't control the weather. You can't control the highway and the curves and the incline. You can't control the other drivers flying around you. You can try, but you'll never be able to do it. See, the promise here is that you can sleep because God, he's got it. He's got it under control. See, I don't know about you, but I can get so wound up in my life trying to control everything. And I can try to put everything on my own shoulders, but my shoulders were not meant to carry the weight of the world, much less the weight of my life. And neither were yours. See, what the psalmist wants us to see is that you don't have to. You don't have to carry the world. God's got it. And you don't have to stay awake all the time trying to solve your life. You can sleep because God, he's awake. Verse 5, the Lord watches over you, and the Lord is your shade at your right hand. Shade here, he's going to connect it to the next verse. The sun will not harm you by day, but understand that shade has a sense of protection, of defense. And the fact that he says he shades your right hand is your sword hand. This is how you fight your battles. And so it's a picture of as you are fighting your battle, and every day is a battle, God is your protection. So he says, the Lord is your shade at your right hand. Verse 6, the sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. In other words, look, every day, 24/7, the sun, the moon, night, day, it doesn't matter. You have your sword is protected, and God, he is protecting you. Verse 7, the Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going both now and forevermore. See, sun and moon, it's 24/7 every single day. But now he says, I'm going to keep you from all harm. I'll watch over your life. You're coming and going now and forevermore. You realize that every day you come and you go. See, this is the picture of daily life. Every day you leave the place where you feel safe. And in some ways, you step into danger. You step into risk. Right? Maybe it's leaving your home. Maybe it's just leaving your bed. You're leaving the place where you feel safe, the covers, and you step into life, and every day is a battle. Every day is a battle. It is a battle to get out of bed. It is a battle to leave your house and to go to work. It's a battle to love people who are unlovely. It's a battle to give respect to people who don't act like they deserve it. It's a battle to show compassion. It's a battle to love. It's a battle not to lose heart. It's a battle not to be discouraged when you see what's going on in your life and in the world around you. It's a battle not to become cynical and bitter when you see the absurdity of life in all of its many forms. It's a battle not to lose hope. See, every day is a battle, and whether you realize it or not, you are fighting a battle. Every day you are invited into a battle, and in some ways it's a battle that you cannot escape because the greatest battle that you fight every day begins within you. It is the battle to have the courage to step into the world that God loves rather than run away from the world. It is the battle to have the courage to love the world that God loves instead of shunning the world. It's the battle to step into the unpredictable and the unexpected and the beautiful mess that is life. See, that's the battle that we face, and that's the battle that we fight every day. See, I think this is why we struggle to understand verses like 7. Verse 7, when he says, he will watch over your life. This phrase, watch over, it's actually used 5 different times in the psalm. Did you see that? 5 different times he says, God watches over, he watches over, he watches over, he watches over, he watches over. Do you think he means it? Yeah, he's serious. God watches over. But the sense of that verb is not just to watch over like, oh, I'm observing. No, it's to guard. It's to protect. It's like God is your personal security detail. And the question then is, okay, God, if you're my personal security detail, then why is there pain in my life? See, that's the problem. See, we have this misconception about life. We have a very limited view of life. We tend to think of life as everything out there. We think of life, all of our externals. See, what God is promising to protect is the very essence of who you are. This is what Jesus has to share with us in Matthew 6. He tries to explain this to his disciples. He says, therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? See, we imagine that God is protecting us from harm. That means that we'll never experience any pain. God, if you're protecting my life, then how come my life isn't everything that I want it to be? How come there's pain? How come there's hurt? See, it's not unlike why my daughter, she doesn't understand going to the doctor. Because you tell her, we're going to go to the doctor to keep you healthy, then why does it hurt? Because you go and you get a shot, or you get a blood draw. See, it's very confusing for children because they're not thinking about their long-term health. They just want to know, does it hurt right now? And see, the life, your life that God is protecting, it's the life, is the very essence of who you are. See, God doesn't love your stuff. God doesn't love your achievements. He only loves you. And he cares about all the rest of it insofar as it affects you. Because see, what he loves is you. He loves you. He's protecting you, your life, the essence of who you are, and he will never let any harm come to you. A couple of weeks ago, Carrie and I took the kids to Diggerland. My aunt had given us a really great gift card when she found out that we were coming to New Jersey. And so she looked up different amusement parks, and she said, this looks great, and she sent us this gift card for Christmas. And so we were able to take our kids. And if you've never been to Diggerland, it's basically an amusement park made out of heavy machinery, which sounds really dangerous when I say it out loud. But it's great. It's great for kids if you've never seen it. And they've got diggers and bulldozers and heavy lifters and all the rest of it, and they've turned them into rides. But one of the attractions that they have that has nothing to do with heavy machinery is a high ropes course. Now understand, I hate heights. So of course that's what my kids want to do. So we stand in line and we get up there and they give you a harness and they put it on you and I'm feeling better about it already. But they give me a harness and there's a rope that attaches to the cable. And so understand, you're going to be going, 5 or 6 stories, I think. Like it's very high in the air. And there's this wire cable that your rope is always going to be connected to. But the rope is not taut. The rope isn't tight. It's not lifting you up so you feel secure all the time. No. It's actually fairly loose. So as you're walking along the platforms and it's shaking and it feels chaotic and unpredictable and you're holding onto the ropes and everything's wiggling, understand you can fall. You won't fall to your death, just far enough to give you a heart attack. Small win. And so, you're up there, and I can tell you from personal experience that just because you have the harness doesn't mean that you're not scared. Just because you have the harness doesn't mean that it's not thrilling and exciting and terrifying all at the same time. See, the harness didn't make me feel bored. I wasn't like, oh man, there's nothing really to do up here now. I'm wearing a harness, whatever. No, the harness gave me the confidence and the courage to actually get on the attraction to begin with, to walk up that first flight of stairs, so that I could, over time, work my way to the top and in my own way defy gravity. That's what the harness did for me. See, I'm not here to tell you that your life feels safe. I'm not here to tell you that your life is predictable. I'm not here to tell you that your life is everything that you plan it could be. It's not like that at all. But what I am here to tell you is that God has hold of you. And he is never going to let you fall further than he can catch you. So that you can step into the life that he has created for you. You can have the courage to step into the life he's called you to. You can step into who he is creating you to be, because that takes courage, and you need to know that he's holding you the whole time. See, life is chaos. It's full of chaos. Some of it's beautiful, so much of it is not. So much of it is things that we wish had never happened, and life is full of unimaginable things with unimaginable consequences, things that we never could have predicted. But can I tell you that in all of human history, the most unpredictable and unexpected moment was when God himself became human. When he stepped into the world. Imagine this. This is God. He created all heaven and earth, all of it. He didn't have to do anything. And he says, I'm not even going to sort of like orchestrate things. No. I'm going to become one of you. That is so unexpected. You never see that coming. The most unexpected moment in all of human history, surpassed maybe by only one more. It's when Jesus himself said, yeah, I'm God, and yet I'm going to die for you. So you don't see that coming. Jesus, he gave his life as a ransom to save us from death. See, when you give your life to Jesus, when you allow him to invade your life the way that he invaded the world over 2,000 years ago, he will begin a chain reaction in you that will culminate in eternal life. And he will begin to make peace and bring peace into your soul to quiet the chaos that you feel. Because he has hold of you. He's got you. And he's never going to let you go. Let me pray for us. Jesus, how do we get over the fact that you stepped into time and space and you became one of us? Is there anything more unexpected than that God, you would condescend to become one of your creatures so that you could save us from an eternity separated from you? And not just save us from that, but to save us into eternal life, into a life that we were meant for, a life we were created for, but a life that we struggle to imagine because we can't imagine greater than you. Your dreams and your imagination for all that you have created us to be surpasses our wildest dreams. So Jesus, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for invading our world. Thank you for invading our hearts. And God, we just want to give all of ourselves to you. Life is scary. Life is chaotic. Life is unexpected, and some of those unexpected surprises are not the ones that we were hoping for. And you're not promising in being with us that we'll never fall. You just promise that we'll never fall further than you can catch. You've always got us. You're always holding us up. And so, God, let that truth sink deep into our souls so that we can have the courage to do a high wire act. Have the courage to enter every day, the battle that is every single day, the battle to look like you, to love the world the way that you love the world, to love our neighbors the way that you love us. God, give us the courage to be your hands and your feet this week. Lord, we love you. Thank you that you loved us before we ever even knew the words.